we're going to be rolling yet again with another thing that my grandma says. And y'all, this may take a little bit of explaining if you have never heard it before. And it is quite simply, you can brick a doghouse, but it's still a doghouse. All right, how many of y'all have ever heard that before? Okay, cool. Ever heard that before? You can brick a doghouse, but it's still a doghouse. I love your grandma, but how is she so sweet and so like Southern, and yet she doesn't say half of these things? Yeah. It shocks me every now and then. But it's quite simply, how many of y'all have ever seen a doghouse or been in a doghouse? Okay. Do y'all know what a metaphorical doghouse is? Like if somebody says, somebody's spending the night in the doghouse. It's not jail. It's usually within like a relationship or spouses. It's the equivalent of sleeping on the couch, right? Because like my grandma used to tell my grandpa all the time, well, if you like that dog enough, then you better go get comfy with it because you ain't sleeping with me tonight, stuff like that. And it's the whole idea of you can make your dog house as pretty as you want. You can put some lights in it. You can brick it up and try to make it look like a normal home, but at the end of the day, it's still a dog house. Still a doghouse, don't matter what you do to it. And so, even if it's got Wi-Fi, while I was writing this sermon, I had Charlie with me, and I was writing this sermon, and I had Bluey or something playing on the TV, and every now and then it would stop and play a commercial, and it was a commercial about how this new internet service has like really great internet coverage in the house, and it was like, where's everybody at? And they're like, they're in the doghouse, and it's because you still get internet out in the doghouse. And I was like, I don't know if this is Jesus or just random, but I like it. And so I was sitting there, I didn't fully know what to do with it. But anyway, so if you have your Bible, we're going to be in Daniel chapter 1, verses 3 through 17. I don't have it all written up on the screen because it's a lot. So y'all are going to have to bear with me as I stutter through most of it. Anyway, so Daniel chapter 1, verses 3 through 17. Now, a couple important things to note before we dive into this. At this point in time in the Jewish history is when the nation of Israel is in captivity to the nation of Babylon. The Israelites, for years, generations, had been disagreement and in disagreement and disobeying God and not following the laws that he had asked of them. And so God sent judge and prophet time and time again to say, hey, you need to get your rear end off of your head and act what I've called you to do and everything. And they just kept worshiping other idols, other gods, and it just wasn't changing. And so eventually God did what he said he was going to do. He sent another nation, which was Babylon, to go and wipe out everything that they had. He put them completely back into captivity, destroyed their city, destroyed their walls, broke it down to almost nothing. And here's the deal with Babylon. So, this is a little bit of history thing, all right? Babylon was one of the greatest empires in the world because it was the first empire in the world to establish its very long terrain of leadership. So if it was not for Babylon, Alexander the Great would not have been able to do what he did by conquering the then known world. Rome would not have been able to establish the roads in the way that they did, which connected the entire world. And we still would probably be where we are today, but it would look a lot different. It is because of Babylon that all of these things happen, because Alexander the Great was only able to mass his great expanse because he basically conquered Babylon. And so that light is flickering on and off because it's almost dead and then it's not dead, and it's on my to-do list. And so Alexander the Great only was able to do what he did because Babylon was already so well established that he basically dethroned Babylon, dethroned Persia, took over their empire, and then everything that was Babylon and Persia was now belonged to Alexander the Great. And same thing happened with Rome. Rome just went through and went to every area that was held by Macedonia, by Alexander the Great, and was like, hey, guess what? You're mine now. And because that was the lay of the land, and that was what was established, and they came in, they were able to do it. So, Babylon. Daniel chapter 1, verse 3 says, Then the king ordered Azaraph, his chief of staff, to bring to the palace some of the young men of Judah's royal family and other noble families who have been brought to Babylon as captives. Select only strong, healthy, and good-looking young men, he said. Make sure that they are well-versed in every branch of learning and gifted with knowledge of good judgment and are suited to serve in the royal palace. Train these young men in language and literature of Babylon. The king assigned them a daily ration of food and wine from his own kitchens. They were to be trained for 3 years, and then they would enter the royal service. David, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Anybody know who those last three are? I preached about it, but it was like a year ago. Anybody know? Quick guess. Okay, you'll find out in just a second. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were four of the young men chosen from all of the tribe of Judah. The chief of staff renamed them with these Babylonian names. Daniel was called Belteshazzar. Hananiah was called Shadrach. Mishael was called Meshach. Azariah was called Abednego. Y'all know who they are now? Okay. But Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating food and wine given to them by the king. He asked the chief of staff permission not to eat these unacceptable foods. Now God himself had given the chief of staff both respect and affection for Daniel. But he responded, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has ordered you to eat this food and wine. If you become pale and thin compared to the other to the other youths of your age, I'm afraid the king will have me beheaded. Daniel spoke with the attendant who had been appointed by the chief of the staff to look over David, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Please test us for 10 days on the diet of vegetables and water. Daniel said, at the end of the 10 days, see how we look in compared to the other young men who are eating the king's food. Then make your decision in the light of what you see. The attendants agreed to Daniel's suggestion and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his 3 friends looked healthier and better nourished than any young man who had been eating the food assigned by the king. So after the attendant fed them only vegetables instead of the food and wine provided for the others. God gave these 4 young men an unusual aptitude for understanding every aspect of literature and wisdom, and God gave Daniel the special ability to interpret the meanings of visions and dreams. All right, now I know I hit you with a lot, all right, but we're going to kind of jump back and forth to where we were at and diagnose some of this. So, first off, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, okay? 4 little Jewish boys that were trusting in God the entire time, and not because of their situation, not because of their cause, not because of anything that they did, because Scripture tells us from their birth till their death, they followed God's commandments to the T. So because not of anything that they did, they were put in a doghouse. Because of what the kings of Israel, what the kings of Judah, what everybody else around them was doing, even though they didn't participate in it, they were stuck in a situation they did not want to be in. And what was really, really interesting is that they recognized, first and foremost, I might not be able to change my situation, but what I can do is I can stay faithful to what God has asked me to do while I'm in my situation. Like I read earlier in chapter 1, verse 8, it says Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food of the king. How many of y'all have ever heard the phrase, like, I ate like I was a king? Or, like, acted like I was a king? We say that a lot, treat me like I'm a queen that I am, which 100% everybody should, okay? We hear that a lot. All right, now here's the deal. If you are a person, let's put our imagination hats on. If you're a person that has been captured by another nation, okay, I don't know, Mexico came up and took us all, and then decided to take everybody in the room captive, and you were parceled out to either be like workers, just general slaves in households, or like, whatever. Okay. So that's your life from there till you die. Okay. How many of y'all know you don't give the best food to the lowest person on the totem pole? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes like mealtime at the Brogan house when we were young was like chicken nuggets would be on the table and they would say ready, set, go, and then it was like, free for all, right? And if you missed it, then you missed it, right? I don't know about y'all, just me? Okay, cool. So eating was probably tricky, but not only were they being well fed, but they were being well fed from the king's table. Now, the king's table, as you would assume, has the best of the best. It's 100% great. Everything is tasted and approved. Everything is the best cuts of everything. It is from the best fields in the entire city, nation. Why? Because it's going to the king. And even the scraps are better than anything anybody else has got. So why in the world would Daniel not want some of it? Are you sure? But assuming it's beef, because they had cattle. They killed some cows. They can eat cow. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Why would he not eat off of the king's table? It's not his king. How many of y'all pray over your food every meal? Okay. Sometimes we forget. You just get so hungry for breakfast in the morning, you just scarf it down, all right? Guess what? Everybody forever has always done that. Babylon is not a new nation to give an offering of their portion of food to their God. So not only might it have been unclean, like what you said, but also it was food that had already been sacrificed to someone that was not God. And so more than anything, they didn't want to stain themselves by eating tainted food that was supposed to be a blessing from some other God that honestly isn't anything that's important to them. They only wanted to be blessed in their life by their God. And so they were trying to maintain everything. They were in a nation that literally renamed them, so much so to the point in time that y'all didn't know 3 of their names. And they are some of the most famous Bible characters ever. Everybody's heard of those 3 little Jews in the furnace and fire and all of that. Everybody's heard that story. And if you haven't, that's okay, but I'll tell you what, you probably have heard someone say something that is suggestive about it. And yet when I say Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, everybody says, who? I don't know that guy. That's a funny name, Azariah. And then he goes to Abednego. Can we just say a moment of silence for Abednego, who used to be Azariah? Man, that dude's mama, that's rough. That's how you get picked on as a kid. Start out Azariah, and you think it's going to get better when you hear you're getting a new name. You get excited, and then you get slapped in the face with Abednego. Nobody can even say that. Anyway, sorry. That's so left field. So Daniel did not cause his situation, but at the same time, he didn't try to change his situation. Instead, he chose to follow what God had asked over him and chose to live in God's direction through his situation. When we feel like we have the right way and the wrong things to lead, we get bogged down with that first word, which is we. Daniel was in a situation where he was put in a place where people were trying to lead and guide his direction, and he was trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? And he did the appropriate thing by asking the question, what does God want? Now, this is very, very, very normal and kind, because we all have things that we want in our own way. And everybody sometimes is very butts head about what you want is what I want, and what I want is what I want, and don't talk to me about it. How many of y'all gonna ask this question? Is it crispy cookies or is it chewy cookies? Y'all are so wrong. You want that chewy cookie that's so soft? You want it to be so chewy that when you have your glass of milk, you dip it in there and it's falling apart and everything, and it makes some chocolate milk and everything? 100%. You want, right? Okay. See what I'm talking about? We like things how we like them. We want it how we want it. Don't nobody give me a crispy cookie and say, this is good. No. You put a crispy cookie in milk, you know what happens? It just turns to crumbs. Ain't nobody wants to eat crumbs. Do I look like I'm a dog? Look, my dog can come and eat my crumbs after I finish my chewy cookie, which is delicious. All right. We want things how we want them, and we're specific about it. And the question is, are we actually taking time to ask, what does God want in my situation? What do we feel we have the right way? Y'all, the early church after Jesus died, rose, and then left was so they had so much faith, they had so much power that, do you know what they called themselves? They didn't call themselves the church. They didn't call themselves Christians. Do you know what they called themselves? They called themselves the way. They said, you want to know how to live your life? Come and follow the way. You want to know the direction you need? Come and follow the way. You want to know the best thing that can help you in your terrible, trashy situation? Come follow the way. And at some point in time, we've changed it so that, because we don't want to offend anybody, and we don't want to say, man, that crispy cookie is nasty. But what we're going to say is, you can have your cookie, but you can come and follow the way, and we'll just put you on the back pew way over there, and we won't look at your... This means that I have the way right here. Take your crispy cookie all the way over there. No, right? We're supposed to be following the way because it's only one way. Now, this begs the question, how are we to follow his way in an anti-faith environment? Because I don't know about you guys, Daniel lived in an anti-faith environment because he lived in a place that literally changed his whole name and wanted to make him Babylonian because Babylonian was the right way. I don't know if you live in a place where you feel like you have to arrange your life to fit into a box. I know where y'all go to school. Here's one thing that I want to point out on how to follow his way. And this is something that jumped out at me when I was reading this. So it's after Daniel and the three are eating the food and they've done their test and everything. And the first thing that is said is, it says, at the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his three friends looked healthier and better nourished. They looked healthier. Now, can I ask a question? What is health? What is healthier? Because that's a very important question to define right now. Because if we're asking they look healthier, and we know that Jesus' way leads to health, his way leads to health, no one wants to be sick. No one wants to be sick. Y'all might want to be sick during school time because it gets you out of a test and out of a class, and that's okay. Let me tell you what happens when you're sick and you're an adult. You still have to go to work. You still have to take care of everything. There's still bills to pay. If you want to say, oh, I'm sick and I can't go that day, and then, just not go in, well, then you lost $50 and you got to bring $50 up somewhere because your grocery bill is still that amount. When I was working at a place up in northern Minnesota, which is called Menards, I was working out in the yard and everything. We had sick time, okay? But it was a really weird place. They would only give us our sick pay if we were sick at work. Or we could use our sick pay, but they would still dock us late pays, and you could only get so many late hours, and then you would get fired for having late hours. And so I was like, man, this is messed up. I'm sick. I can't go in. What am I supposed to do? Just take the sick pay and then still get in trouble afterwards? And my coworker said, no, let me show you how you do this. So he came to work one day. He was not a believer. He was more hungover than he was sick. But he came to work one day, and he walked in, and we had our little ID badges, and he walked in the door, swiped in. He went, opened the door, and vomited right there, and then walked back in, and he said, I'm going home. Clocked out, and then went home because he was sick at work, and so he couldn't stay at work because he was sick at work, but he didn't get docked late hours. So, being sick is not cool, right? Everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to be okay. So if we ask the question, what is health? Now, I know how many of you guys all of you were alive during COVID. How many of you were not like infants during COVID 5 years ago? Has it really been 5 years ago? World is messed up. Okay, so do y'all know what the World Health Organization is? Who? There, thank you so much. I was about to make that joke, but you got it before I could. WHO, World Health Organization. They're the ones that told everybody, you're sick, quarantine yourself, okay? It is their direct fault that I hate who now, okay? So here's the thing. World Health Organization, in charge of all global health catastrophes. They have had the same phrase for what is health, like what is the definition of healthy. They've had the same one since 1948. All right, I'm putting it up on the screen so I can give it to you. Here it is. Health is a state of complete physical and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. All right? Sounds good, right? Can I ask you a question? Have you ever had a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being health? When I was 5. And here's the thing. I was talking to Zoe and she was like, well, like, I feel like it's possible. And I said, no. I was like, because if you are a person that you have a complete physical state of healthiness and mental state of healthiness, you're telling way too many people. And so your social health is not as good as you think it is. Because ain't nobody wants to be around that person that, oh, my life is always perfect. Butterflies, rainbows. Ooh, what if it is? Yeah, that's great. But every now and then, you know what you do when somebody when somebody is like puppy dogs and rainbows all the time? Everybody goes, oh, can this kid not shut up? Right? Like it's that time when you take a test and you bomb it and somebody's walking around shutting. They're like, I got an A. And I'm sitting over there like I'm clinging on with my D for like life and everything. Zoe, sorry. I love you. I'm staring at that. Complete health. Complete state of health. Here's the deal with this. This sounds really good, but it's unattainable. It's obnoxious. It's unattainable. I don't believe, and I could be wrong, this is my own personal opinion, I can't reach that. You're right. I might have been 5 the last time I felt like this was an appropriate statement. And then somebody took my tricycle and then I was done. That was it. That was the last time I was complete health. So we ask the question, how in the world are we supposed to reach this? This is what health has been since 1948. Y'all, that's almost 100 years. Almost 100 years. We're talking about 90 some odd years. This is the statement of health, and it's unattainable. So how are we supposed to do it? Let me tell you. This is what the Bible says. May God himself, the God who makes everything holy and whole, make you holy and whole, put together spirit, soul, body, and keep you fit for the coming of our Master, Jesus Christ. The one who has called you is completely dependable. If he said it, he'll do it. Now, here's the really, really cool part about that. This is 1 Thessalonians 5:23, because I'm about to change 23 through 24. To be healthy in the Bible is a completely different situation, because health in our world is unattainable. But here's the thing. To be healthy in the Bible is to be holy, and to be holy means to be set apart from everything else. And then it means to be whole. And only one person can make you whole, which is to be put together, and that's Jesus. So if you ask the question, how am I supposed to be healthy? The answer is you need to spend your time with Jesus and allow him to make you holy by putting away things you don't need to be with, and allow him to make you whole, because only he can put you together, because he's the one who put you together in the first place. Somebody's asking me all the time, Pastor William, how do I get better in this, and how do I do better in this part of my life, God? And Pastor William, I'm really struggling in this, and it's really bringing me down, and I don't know what to do with that. And my answer is quite simply always, when have you asked Jesus? You can ask me anything. I promise y'all, you can ask me any question. It will not be something that I am scared of. I will not shy away from it. It won't be the first time you've asked me that question. And I'll be completely honest. If you ask me a question, I don't know the answer, I'll say, I don't know the answer, but let me find it and I'll come back to you. Okay? You can ask me any question. But why are y'all asking me questions? And yet you won't open your Bible and turn to a page and just start reading. Every single one of y'all spend hours a day on your phone. Check your screen time, and ain't nobody's going to look up, what do I do about this? Bible search. Let's be honest, I do it. What am I going to do in this point in time? I open up my Bible app. I look up, what do I do with anxiety? Look at the first couple scriptures, start reading. I decide, I think that this one really is hitting where I'm at. I open up the whole chapter, start reading the whole chapter. I take my wonderful, wonderful study Bible that I am trying to make sure each and every one of you have, and I look in the bottom notes underneath that says what's going on, and I try to find my answer, and then I finish it by spending time in prayer and worship. You want to be holy, you want to be healed, you want to be healthy, you got to allow Jesus to be holy and make you whole. Biblical health requires work. It requires us to be set apart and then allowing the Holy Spirit to do the work in us. And here's the deal. Obedience, that is 100% our job. We're supposed to be obedient in what He's asked us to do. Our outlook is something that we can 100% control. You don't like your situation, it might 100% suck and you are absolutely good. But if you can't find one good thing to say in your life, that's up to you. You've got to change your outlook every now and then. So outlook is something that we must constantly look at. And here's the other thing. Output is also 100% up to you. You can be broke legs and still choose to worship. Ain't nobody told you have to stand. I tell you have to stand because y'all are bumps on a log. But ain't nobody told you in the Bible that you can not worship wherever you are. Your output is up to you. What I put my effort into is up to me. The only thing is the outcome is up to God. And that's something that we have to relinquish. We have to give our outcome up to God and let Him take care of me and let me relinquish it. Because biblical health, which is so important, is not something that's supposed to be pursued alone. You're supposed to let God help. You, like I said, you have to take control of your obedience. You have to take control of your outlook. You have to take control of your output, but then you have to let God have the outcome and just let Him work with you. And let Him work through you. And here's the thing. Last few words. If He said it, He'll do it. Some of y'all are over there, ooh, my life is just bad. I don't know what to do. I'm telling you right now, Jesus promised you a good and faithful life. He didn't promise you that it would be 100% awesome all the time. He told you it was going to suck in moments. But what He promised you is that you would have peace, you would have patience, you would be able to walk through, and He would hold you and stand beside it the whole time. And y'all are looking at me asking, why am I alone? He said it, He'll do it. I'm fired up. I don't know about y'all. We're going to finish this out real quick. His way makes you stand out. Later on, it says, the king talked with them and found none equal. Found none equal. How do you find none equal? Got to be lined up to some people. Daniel and his friends knew the whole time what the world was asking of them, but they chose to stand out and be different. And here's the thing. The key to evangelizing your school, your home, your world comes down to one simple thing, and that is for you to continue to live a life well lived following Jesus. How's going to be the best way for you to share Jesus? If you act Jesus, people will want to know what you got going on inside of you. But if you act the exact same way that you act before you started saying something about Jesus, ain't nobody going to listen to you in the first place. His way makes you stand out. Now, here's the last thing that I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to finish real quick. His way gives you discernment. So, His way gives you discernment. Now, here's the thing. Discernment in Greek is a word that's called arkino. And I didn't put it up there, but I'm about to define it for you. It means to distinguish, to separate out by a diligent search, to examine. To distinguish, to separate out by a diligent search, or to examine. Now, we hear this word in church all the time about God's given me discernment. 100% absolutely. But here's the thing. Discernment is not necessarily a gut response. Discernment is not, somebody sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. 100%. There are moments where you have a immediate moment of discernment and you're like, I don't need to be in this place. I don't need to talk to these people. It happened. Zoe and I can tell you story after story of what happened to us, our families, other missionaries when we were on the field, about you just have moments where you're like, I need to bug out. I need to get out of this situation. And it is an instant and you feel it in your gut. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm going to read this one more time. To distinguish, to separate out by diligent search, to examine. If I'm separating out by diligent search, it's not I think left, not right. If I'm gonna search, y'all ever play hide and seek with like a little kid? Like as your age now, like someone like much little, okay? Where's the first place they hide? The closest place that's like mildly hidden. Like if we're here to there, they're going to hide under that table. They're going to hide under there. Somebody's going to try to fit in a bucket over there if they can, right around the door. It's really easy to play hide and go seek with a kid that's younger than you. Why? Because it takes no amount of searching. Okay? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you've got to figure out, what do you think about this? What does God think about this? And once again, my answer is right here. There's a really good song that just came out that said, Dusty Bibles. We got dust on our Bibles, brand new iPhones. Wonder why we feel this way? It's because ain't nobody opening this book. Discernment, like I said, it can be a gut response. But it takes practice. It takes prayer. It takes worship. It takes identifying in your life what you desperately need and how to affect change. And too often we spend time trying to figure out what that means to us in our own context, in our own life. Well, I want to follow the way. I want to be a part of the way. Paul talked a lot about the way and what that means. And I want to be a part of that in my life, but how do I figure that out? This is not a race that we run alone. Because we don't worship some God that has no power and no authority. We worship a God that has all power and all authority and has promised that he would be with us in the midst of our problems, on the highs of our mountains, on the lows of our valley, and that he will never leave us, forsake us, and that he will stand beside us at all times. We're asking, I don't know about that. If he said it, he'll do it. How am I supposed to live my life? We're supposed to follow his way. It means that we've got to take steps to stand out. If you wonder why you're struggling in your life, have you lived out your faith? I preached a long time ago. Faith is not meant to be hidden under a bushel or a basket. It just ends up looking stupid. You can take your doghouse that you are living in and you can think, this is great. I'm going to put up some lights. I'm going to put up a fence. I'm going to brick it in. Get some nice decor, whatever that looks like. Put a picture up, put a mirror up, make the room look bigger. All the while, you're just still sitting in a doghouse. And why? It's because you've decided to live the way that was handed to you and not his way, the way. Your situation, you've let it define who you are.